The head is their weak point!
So Fatshark Games has announced it's working on Vermintide 2, which, if you're a big Skaven fan such as myself, is great news. I fell in love with the first Vermintide and it actually led to me starting my first ever Warhammer army, much to the dismay of my bank balance. Unfortunately, apart from this extremely brief teaser and a few screenshots of, well, just empty levels, there's not really much detail on Vermintide 2 for us to go on. We know it's a sequel, obviously, and some people reckon the noises in the background of the teaser point to Nurgle getting involved in the end times alongside the various Skaven clans, but with nothing else concrete, I figured we may as well talk about the things we'd like to see instead. So without any further ado, here are 7 things we want from Vermintide 2. First up, more races. As I mentioned earlier, the Vermintide community has a sneaking suspicion the forces of Nurgle will be making an appearance in the sequel. The reasoning seemed fairly convincing to me, but to be honest, I'd be happy to have any race join in the fight, regardless of which one. Actually, I'd like to see Death Rattle or maybe the Vampire counts, but still, having greater enemy diversity would be great, introducing new behaviours to watch out for and special foes to kill. So, Nurgle or not, I don't really mind. A new race would be lovely. Thanks. Although that said, I really wouldn't mind some more Skaven either.
Some Lumberfoot's brew. Ugh, for desperate times only.
I feel like the various Skaven clans were pretty well represented in Vermintide. You had gutter runners from Clan Eshin, packmasters and ogres from Clan Moulder, globadiers and rattling gunners from Clan Scryer, a grey seer from the Master Clan, and of course the storm vermin and clan rats from Clan Verminous. One clan we didn't get enough of, however, was Clan Pestilence. At most we got rats claiming to be from Clan Fester, one of the lesser Skaven clans that follows Clan Pestilence. Maybe Fatshark felt the Poison Wind Globadier did a good enough job of covering the whole poison and disease mechanic, but as someone who primarily collects Pestilence, I think they're one of the more interesting clans, and it'd be great to see them thrown into the mix. I mean, they're disease-worshipping fanatics with poisonous blood. What's not to love? Even if Clan Pestilence doesn't get a look in for Vermintide 2, it'd be great to see some new special units thrown into the mix. Maybe it was the trailer for Total War Warhammer 2 that got me thinking, but seeing a Hellpit abomination from Clan Moulder roll and claw its way into battle would be awesome. And by awesome, I of course mean terrifying. Oh, and if Fatshark you could finally get round to giving the Skaven shields, that would be just great.
See, an assassin longs to feel my axe.
While we're talking about a diversified pool of enemies to wade into, actually, it'd be nice to have a few new player classes added into the mix, or at least have the existing classes get a bit of a refresh. While I'm very attached to Carillion and Bardin and the rest of the gang, the chance to play around with some new classes would be most welcome. An additional magic user would be especially good. The Bright Wizard has a very particular style of play that not everybody got the hang of, including myself, so an additional option would really help out there. Whoever we get though, I really don't mind as long as they try to include more witty dialogue. One of the things that first impressed me about Vermintide was how chatty all the characters were, with some great contextual lines teasing bits of the story out depending on your team composition and the mission you were attempting. The generic lines spat out when a player was doing loads of damage or failing to kill a storm vermin were also great, giving you a good sense of feedback and increased situational awareness. Most importantly of all though, they were frequently pretty funny. Without all that back and forth, Vermintide simply wouldn't feel the same, so here's hoping the characters are as loquacious the second time round.
Another century and we might make a marksman of you.
But new characters or old, chatty or not, none of it matters without decent weapons to swing and shoot, and I for one hope we get a lot of new ones. Like it or not, there's a definite grind built into Vermintide, more on that later, and it's all in the pursuit of loot, glorious loot. A bunch of new weapons and weapon traits is a must-have for Vermintide 2. If loot gets reset solely so players can grind for the same rapier, bolt staff or pair of swords from the first game, then I think those people are going to be pretty ticked off. They'll still do it, obviously, but they won't be happy about it.
Keep Ranger, get on it.
Speaking of the grind, actually, one of the things I'd really like to see is a more targeted way to get a specific weapon type without relying so much on the bounty board or on pure luck with the random number generator. While getting weapons of a certain tier isn't too hard in Vermintide, getting the precise one you want is tricky. Earning an orange or red weapon for Bardin the Dwarf Ranger, for instance, is only useful to me if it comes with a shield, because that's how I prefer to play him. And as anybody who still doesn't have a glaive for Carillion can attest, getting the specific weapon you want can be very tricky in Vermintide. So having that be less of an obstacle in the sequel would frankly be a delight. Making sure it's properly balanced will be tricky, of course, because if it's too easy to grind up to your dream weapon, then I think some players will honestly be put off. But if there was a way to make it less of a gamble, I'd be very happy indeed. Oh, and more hats, please. Lots of them. I know it probably doesn't seem like that was worth a bullet point all of its own, but yes it was. Hats are everything. We've got 1 point left to go on our list, and hopefully you'll forgive me if it sounds like it's couched in criticism of the first game, but one thing I'd really love from Vermintide 2 is a lack of bugs at launch. I think it's fair to say Vermintide launched with its fair share of quirks. Packmasters with insane range, sometimes dragging players through a wall, rats hiding under the floorboards where they couldn't be hit, and a fair few ways for players to cheese the game and exploit it for their own purposes. More on those in a second. While to be honest, some of these imperfections were quite funny and added to a weird sense of camaraderie in the early days of the community, they did sort of get in the way of the rat killing somewhat. A smooth launch without the same shenanigans would be lovely, and that goes for players abusing the system too, for the record. While it's nice Vermintide allows mods, some players were using those to cheat the game and its loot system, which, in a game based around playing with other people on the internet, is far from ideal. While Fatshark did its best to stop this kind of thing from happening, it still tarnished the experience for some, and it'd be nice to avoid the same. So there you have it, 7 things we want from Vermintide 2, but what about you? What do you want to see in the rat bashing sequel? Let us know in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, there are plenty more for you to watch on screen now. Do like and subscribe for plenty more from Eurogamer. Thank you for watching, and have a lovely day.
Well, struck as Umge, well, like Rossi and Bulgur at Kanazakarak.